So, in beginning to want to talk about Maurice Merleau-Ponty's phenomenology of perception, I have made two videos on that so far. One on the preface, one on the introduction. So, I wanted to kind of discuss what is a Gestalt psychology a little bit. This is kind of interesting because not all philosophers, and not many that I've read, have wanted to just involve psychology in this same intervening sort of, cooperating way as Merleau-Ponty is. And I did study Merleau-Ponty in college, and it's just now that I'm kind of getting back into him. And him and Henri Bergson are probably the main two that I can think of. Besides on the analytic trend, Willard Van Ornstein is a definite one. Uh, so, what is Gestalt psychology? And it's that the whole idea of this is that the mind forms a global whole with self-organizing techniques, and it's by physiological mechanisms the world is organized for a self, and by physiological it means what goes on here and in the body itself. And I think Merleau-Ponty is also concerned with physiology and not just concerning the idea of perception as it occurs, but as to how, and I think physiology is in psychology. I think are very important to that. I think that this is probably one of my newer favorites because, and I haven't read Merleau-Ponty since 6 or 7 years ago, but I think it's very, very interesting because it's not all philosophers are wanting to sort of include these more scientific disciplines, because many of them want to discuss how the scientific disciplines should work or how they should start. If we think about people in the philosophy of science, or just epistemologists, or even the earlier modern philosophers, they want to discuss how the scientist should work and where he or she should start from, and not wanting to include those disciplines in their own works. Where Merleau-Ponty wants to include physiology as to what happens, how it happens, and psychology more of what goes on in the brain, and the mind. And I think it's really, really neat. So the end product of perception, and not how we got there. So it's more Gestalt psychology is not. It's not like composites, because it's not like a metaphysical composite that we have perceived. It's more how we experienced it as a whole. It's not how we get to that point, but it's just understanding things in that certain whole sort of way. The human mind forms a percept, or a gestalt. The whole has a reality of its own, and not in its parts. So we have complex interactions among various stimuli which lead to perceptions. So we have this capacity of our own brains to form whole forms, and this is opposing structuralist psychology, and this is almost a deconstruction of the whole situation into its elements, whereas Gestalt is more about understanding what is perceived as a whole and not in its elements, but it's more as to the whole and understanding it, and understanding how we understand it in this whole certain sort of way. And thus, like I said in the previous Merleau-Ponty video, it's not like a 20th century empiricist blue patch here now. It's understanding the whole of what I'm seeing, not just that I'm seeing this here, but what's around it, how my mind brings it all together, the various techniques given certain stimuli. How does my brain bring it all together, and everything. And one psychologist is Kafka, where it says the whole is other than the sum of its parts, and this kind of makes me think about composite metaphysics, because in composite metaphysics, it's they want to try to understand the composite and as to how it is composed of all, and how all of its parts make that a composite. Where in Gestalt psychology, it's more about understanding the whole and how it's not, and how if we were to break these things down, that all of the elements considered don't make up what the Gestalt is, and that's kind of interesting. And it's understanding how our minds and our brains perceive, and how we get the and you know, to understand the Gestalt, to understand the perception, and not how we got that. So that's kind of cool. I think that Gestalt psychology is kind of neat. And I think in reading philosophy, I've kind of come upon only a few psychologies, and I'm only interested in a psychology if it pertains to a philosophy. Like I've discussed behaviorism, discussed epiphenomenalism, I think, and structuralism maybe, and I'm not entirely sure what else. But let me know your thoughts on this, or if you have a way of explaining this better than I have. Definitely comment. I would love to hear it. Thank you for watching.